talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. To talk about them, they're a dysfunctional organization. There's nothing much to say about that. In this past month alone, October 8th, John Gruden, his first emails leak. October 10th, Gruden coaches versus Chicago. They lose 20-9. October 11th, more emails leak. Gruden resigns or gets fired, whichever one you want to use. November 2nd, Henry Ruggs charged with a DUI resulting in death. Ruggs is cut. November 6th, video shows Damon Arnett flashing guns. 2 days later, November 8th, Arnett gets cut.
Flashing guns and also threatening to kill someone.
Yeah,
Bro was
Damon
wild.
Arnett
Did you see
is
that
crazy.
video? Bro, he was bugging.
And the Raiders are a dysfunctional organization. We all know that. But despite that, they still have a chance to win a division, which is actually crazy. Las Vegas Raiders 2020 draft. One of the worst drafts that we've seen in recent memory. Henry Ruggs is in prison. Damon Arnett cut, both first-round picks. Lynn Bowden, the third-round pick, was a quarterback and wide receiver. Was traded in training camp, didn't even play a snap for them. Brian Edwards is starting for them. He's an okay receiver. Tanner Muse, cut. John Simpson is starting now because Incognito's hurt, but he was a backup. And Amik Robertson, he's benched. This draft was a miss. And not only that, but in 2019, Mike Mayock and John Gruden, they drafted Clelin Ferrell with the 4th overall pick. And he's not even seeing the field right now. The players that they drafted, they drafted him over: Devin White, Josh Allen, Ed Oliver, Rashawn Gary, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Jeffrey Simmons. I mean, the list, the list goes on.
The worst picks ever, man.
The Raiders are such a dysfunctional organization, but yet they continue to win
games.
It's insane.
And it's crazy, and it's because the Raiders actually have the highest pressure rate in the NFL. They create the most pressure of any team in the NFL, and the interesting thing about that is that they blitz the least of any team in the NFL. So they create pressure without blitzing. But what do you make of this dysfunction with the Raiders? What are your thoughts on it, all of the things that have been happening to them?
This is a culture that has a bunch of players that don't believe in themselves or the team. There's no accountability in the locker room. This is just it's a weird situation. You know, this is a team that, like you said, in 2020 drafted all these players, and half of them are gone or cut. You know, John Gruden with the emails and the disrespect and the racism that was brought in here. It's tough, you know, because like you said, they're still winning games, but the lack of accountability, the lack of guys just coming in the locker room just for a paycheck. They don't come in. They come into the Raiders. They don't believe in themselves. They don't even play for something. You can even go back to Randy Moss. You know, as talented as Randy Moss was, when he played for the Raiders, there would be times where he didn't show up. There would be times where he just played just to play, where he didn't put in his 110% effort. So I think this organization, dating back to that, has shown the ability to have players that just don't believe in the franchise, don't believe in the coaches, and just come, like I said, for a paycheck. And, you know, it sucks for Derek Carr because even when you watch his post games, he seems like he really loves the game. He seems like he really loves his organization, and he loves the guys he plays with. I mean, he was talking about Henry Ruggs and how he's going to be there for him and show that love and that support for him, which is, you know, dope, even though he did, you know, kill somebody, but that's still pretty dope. And I think, you know, having a quarterback like that for your organization and then not putting the proper players around, putting guys who want to, you know, succeed and putting guys who don't want to fight for each other on a daily basis, I think that really is bad. I mean, it sucks, but yet they're still winning games. So honestly, it's kind of like a 50-50 thing because they have all these mistakes, all this dysfunction, yet they're still one of the best teams in their division.
I'll tell you what's pretty crazy. They have a top 10 offense in total yards. I believe they're even better than that. They are, I think, just out of the top 5, either 6 or 7. They have been pretty efficient in moving the ball, even with Ruggs being out. Obviously, Antonio Brown used to be a part of this team. That's gone. So they really are only relying on Darren Waller, Hunter Renfro, Brian Edwards. Zay Jones has gotten involved a little bit over these past couple of games as well.
They just signed Deshaun Jackson.
Deshaun did just join the roster as well. And Josh Jacobs, who's a good player when he's on the field. Health is his only concern when it comes to me evaluating him. I think in terms of the intangibles of the game, I think he can run efficiently through the tackles. I think he's a pretty shifty back, strong back for sure, can catch the ball as well. I got to give credit to Derek Carr. Derek Carr has been the most consistent, the most durable, just everything that you could want in a franchise quarterback, Derek Carr has been for this Raiders team. And he's putting them on his shoulders and doing everything he can to get them to victory. Hunter Renfro has taken a huge increase this season in targets. I think almost every single game he's seen a minimum of 6 to 7 targets a game. He's been pretty great for him. One person that I'm waiting for their breakout really is Darren Waller. Darren Waller has not been up until this point the Darren Waller that we've been accustomed to these last couple of seasons. Game 1, he comes out 19 targets, and we're thinking that we're about to see one of the all-time great tight end seasons, just obviously overreacting to that performance. And then if you could look for me real quick, has he touched double-digit targets since then? I think this past weekend against the Giants was his closest to that. Waller has just, I don't understand why they're not trying to make him more of a focal point in this offense, given the fact that he is easily their best offensive player in terms of skill position. I do just think overall on both sides of the ball, they're just playing a clean game.
Last week 9, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
11 targets, 7 receptions.
Okay.
And then before that was 5, 8, 7, 7, 7, 7.
So only double digits twice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Week 1 and week 9.
It shouldn't be, especially
week 1 he had 19 targets.
I can understand that he's obviously their main target, and a tight end going against a number 1 corner is never beneficial.
He's only had over 70 yards twice.
Darren Waller has obviously shown that ability to get open on number 1 corners, but at the same time, you're asking a lot of a guy who's just not wide receiver fast. Darren Waller is fast, arguably the fastest tight end in the league. He's not. You just go against a number 1 corner, it's difficult. I just think ultimately, in terms of the extracurriculars, it's killing this team, and I think that we're going to start to see that eventually start to take a toll on this squad. Derek Carr is trying his hardest to keep this squad together. And it shows. It shows in the stats. It shows on the field. Losing this one to the Giants hurts. Giants are not the best team, but you've been solid. You picked them to win. I was shaky about that. Giants are not the best team both sides of the ball. Offensively, they have inconsistent weapons in terms of staying on the field. You really can't rely on any of those options. And defensively, they've been shaky all year. It's a game that the Raiders probably looked at and thought that it's definitely a winnable game.
You think so?
The Raiders probably looked at it and thought they should win this game.
I think they just. I mean, the Henry Ruggs situation just happened.
I
really thought it was more of an emotional loss.
They still won a game that last week.
It was one of those.
Off Gruden. I'm saying off Gruden.
I think
everything
the
that happened with
Gruden thing was a bit different, though. I think the Henry Ruggs situation, I think, hit them a little bit harder than the Gruden one.
It's just unfortunate that all this extra stuff's happening off the field. Like I've said so many times, we should be focusing on the good that they've been doing, but we can't. It's impossible to just ignore all the outside stuff, given how egregious and terrible the things that have been happening off the field. This Ruggs situation could have been avoided. This Arnett situation could have been avoided. It's comes down to what you said, and it's a discipline thing.
You know, they played in Las Vegas last year, but this is their first year playing with fans, and I mean, what a rocky and a bumpy start. I don't want to make it sound like they're horrible at drafting, because they're not. I mean, Nate Hobbs was a late-round pick, and he's starting right now. That was a great pick. Max Crosby, one of the best edge rushers in the league. They drafted him. And Trayvon Merrick has been really good in coverage. Jonathan Abrams, when he's healthy, he's good. Josh Jacobs, they drafted him. Hunter Renfro, drafted him. Brian Edwards, drafted him. You know, it's not like this team has been bad. Colton Miller, Alex Leatherwood. So this team isn't horrible at drafting. It's just they're not great at drafting in the top of the draft in the first round. I mean, 2 of your first-round picks in 2020 in Ruggs and Arnett aren't on the team because of character issues, basically. And that's something you scout. That's something you analyze. You know, character issues. And you know, they made a mistake. I think they both made egregious mistakes.
Oh, my God, so bad.
It's even tough for me to say this, but I kind of feel like Damon Arnett is a little bit worse because he was probably in the right mindset. Like, Henry Ruggs, the action, what he did was by far worse.
I understand what you mean.
But at least he is intoxicated. Like, he wasn't in the right mindset. Like, Damon Arnett probably knows full and well what he's doing. And that comes down to character issues and scouting that. Both are horrible situations. Despite this, though, we're going to talk about the AFC West later on this show. I think the Raiders really have a chance to win this division. And as crazy as that sounds after everything that's happened, they create the most pressure in the NFL, even though they don't blitz, which makes the life on their secondary much less easier. They don't have to, they don't have to lock up for a large amount of time because the pressure is just getting to the quarterback on numerous occasions. Derek Carr is one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and I wholeheartedly believe in that. Deshaun Jackson fills in that skill set that they lost with Henry Ruggs because he's a deep threat. And I think it's time that we start appreciating Derek Carr a little bit more for everything that he's dealt with within the Raiders organization. He is the Matthew Stafford of the AFC. Well, what Matthew Stafford was when he was with the Lions in the NFC. Derek Carr is that. In 6 of Carr's 7 seasons with the Raiders, they have had a bottom 20 defense. This is the only year where they don't have a bottom 20 defense. And despite this, he has consistently been one of the more efficient and accurate quarterbacks. When John Gruden first got to the Raiders, he traded Derek Carr's number 1 receiver in Amari Cooper, and he's been excellent for the Cowboys ever since. You can just see Dak Prescott's numbers before Cooper and then after Cooper. There was a massive difference. And when the team was actually good around Carr, when it was actually functional, he led them to a 12-3 record, was in the MVP race. I don't think he would have won it because Matt Ryan was just on one that season. And then broken fibula, week 16 in the fourth quarter. He doesn't get to play in the playoffs. The Raiders' best year in who knows how long. I mean, Derek Carr has been the only stable thing for the Raiders for the past couple of years. And when I look at Derek Carr and the Raiders, I just immediately think Matthew Stafford and the Lions. But somehow we don't view Derek Carr, we don't give Derek Carr that benefit of the doubt. When people talk about Derek Carr, they don't talk about him in that way of he's dealing with dysfunction. Nobody ever, openly says, I feel bad for Derek Carr in his situation. But when Stafford was in Detroit, that's all people said for him. And I don't want to make this a comparison thing, but Derek Carr has been through hell in Oakland and in Las Vegas, and he has made the best of his situation. He is the most underrated quarterback in the NFL, and I don't think it's close.
That was a strong dialogue. That was a strong...
I don't think it's close. I think he's the most underrated quarterback in the NFL.
I'm trying to really think off the top of my head.
Probably is, though. I mean, aside from Stafford, it's not Stafford. Then
it's not Stafford
not
anymore.
Not anymore.
It's probably Carr.
And even Stafford and Carr are in the same tier.
Tannehill got his love last year.
Yeah, you might be valid. I mean, in terms of accomplishments and what they have done in the NFL right now.
I mean, in terms of just
quarterback
play.
I look at players and I think that people get criticized a little bit too harshly. Like I think Tua gets criticized a little bit too harshly.
Oh, my God.
I do. I mean, Baker obviously gets criticized, and then he'll come back with a game like he just had against the Bengals and stuff like that.
For example, I don't know when it was. I think it was 2019.
But you might be right.
There was this narrative around NFL media that Derek Carr was like the problem for the Raiders.
That's egregious.
He's shell-shocked under pressure and when he gets hit and all this stuff. And it was one of the dumbest narratives at the time because I'm just thinking to myself, have they ever watched Derek Carr play? Have they ever watched a competitor that he is to say he's shell-shocked? To act like, he was the problem with the Raiders was just ridiculous. And I know that was a narrative at one point, and it wasn't true then, it's not true now, and it won't be true in the future. Derek Carr is the only thing that's holding that Raiders franchise together. And he's the reason, along with that elite pass rush, that they have a chance to win this division this year.